Hawksby, Andy Jacobs here on talkSPORT. Later on, we'll chat to Martin Cloak from the Spurs Supporters Trust about Jose and indeed all this talk of a Super League, a very strongly worded sentence from the Spurs Supporters Trust toward the club. But before all of that, we're going to look at some of the legal ramifications that on the horizon. And you probably would have seen that the Super League clubs themselves have already told UEFA they've done some preemptive legal work to make sure that their plans aren't scuppered, and I think that falls under the remit of trying to stop players playing in UEFA-sanctioned international tournaments, or likewise with FIFA, which they're claiming would be unlawful. So we turn to sports lawyer and author of the fine book Done Deal. It is Danny Geey. Good afternoon, Daniel.
Afternoon, gents.
So what do you make of the comments by the breakaway clubs that they've already started kind of taking preemptive legal action off the back of these UEFA threats? And would it be unlawful to stop these players turning out for their countries?
Well, yeah, I mean, at the moment there isn't that much detail and only a throwaway couple of lines or however it might be. But I think ultimately, any sane people wanting to progress are obviously quite a controversial proposal, needs to try and get comfort from lawyers that what they're doing can be done. So I would be surprised if they hadn't taken pretty robust legal advice to try and work out that when their players come to them and say, well, hold on a second, what about the Euros this summer? What about the World Cup next winter? Are we actually going to be able to play in them? That they will be able to turn around and say, well, our view is they can for the following reasons. And I think that's part of what's going on right now.
Yeah, they would have that view, but FIFA and UEFA won't stand for this, will they? Won't this get dragged through the courts for ages? I mean, I can't see... They're not going to just stand by FIFA and UEFA and just go, oh, OK, yeah, that's right, we can't stop you playing in our tournament. I can't see that happening.
Well, I mean, there's a very simple question. Why should they be banned from playing in another tournament? I'm just playing devil's advocate here. I think
because they play for an unsanctioned team in an unsanctioned league outside of the auspices of FIFA and UEFA.
And who's to say that's a bad thing? If the same point that FIFA and UEFA are arguing, which is we are there to uphold the pyramid structure, solidarity payments, and make sure everything is run right. Let's just say, for example, let's take away this whole permanent closed structure, but everything else, if it's not based on solidarity, it might well be that this Super League actually provides more money to leagues than a UEFA or FIFA sanctioned tournament might do or may not do. But let's take that away for a second. I think we need to be very careful about the possibility that everything that FIFA and UEFA does is right, and that the clubs, because they're simply looking out for them for the sake of what might be money, is somehow seen as bad. I don't necessarily see the issue per se with the possibility of someone rivaling a FIFA or UEFA competition if they believe that actually what is being done isn't being done in particular interests. And I think that's part of the argument.
So do you think this is for real? I mean, we've heard already that it could be posturing. It could be a way of getting a better deal currently from UEFA. Or do you feel they're going for it? They're going to go for this and they will see it through. And the fact that so many have resigned from the ECA is that important or not?
It's more than just posturing for sure, because in the past when Super League proposals had come to the fore, clubs had not stuck their neck out and actually come forward with public proposals on their websites, which they've done. So that's really important. I think ultimately, in order to be able to use any position as leverage, you need to convince the other side that you will go ahead and do it. So what I mean by that is that I don't know whether this is going to happen or not. But what I do know is that these clubs have put themselves in the best possible position against UEFA now to be able to leverage their position as much as possible to get closer to what they want to do, at least with the backstop that maybe they'll do it themselves.
If the other 14 teams of the Premier League decide to throw the 6 teams out, is there anything they can do about it, the 6 teams? Can the other 14, can the Premier League do that?
Well, I think there's a bigger question in that, which is, would those clubs do that? And the reason I say that is because those 6 clubs and the other 14 clubs know that they need those 6 clubs in the Premier League playing for all of the reasons of attractiveness, of the broadcasting deals, all of the commercial deals, etc. So the real question, I think, is if this goes ahead and there is a Super League that does take shape, how much of an incentive can those 6 clubs give to the other 8? They only need 8, remember, in order to change the Premier League's mind and to go forward with a 14 vote, to ensure that they can change the minds of those 8 clubs to make it worth their while.
It's whether those Premier League chairmen are dreamers or not, because effectively, if they do go off, if they stay within the Premier League and they go off and set up a Super League and get the untold riches from that, they'll give them a completely unfair advantage in the Premier League. Any chance of a Leicester, as people have been quite rightly saying, or other clubs like West Ham sort of reaching for the stars, that's gone. It wouldn't make any difference. So, I mean, they just have to sort of pragmatists over being dreamers, I guess, and say we need the money more than we care about getting into the Champions League ourselves.
Well, that's the question, I think, that people aren't entirely sure of the answer, which is that there are supposed to be 15 permanent members and 5 variable members on a yearly basis. So those 15 are permanent regardless of where they finish in domestic competition. 5 obviously then dependent on where they finish in domestic competition. Would, for example, one of those places go to a Premier League club if there were already 6 permanent members? The same with other leagues that we're not entirely sure about at the moment. But I completely agree on that point. If what we're talking about is a fundamental realignment of the European pyramid structure, this is what is at stake at the moment, for sure.
Daniel, good to talk to you. Thanks very much. Sorry, Andy, you've got another quick question.
I just wanted to ask one further question. Yeah, no problem. I mean, do you think there's anything these clubs can do that will not turn off the fans? Do you think there's any danger that the fans will just take everything? Well, not danger, but there's this possibility that fans will take anything that's thrown at them and they won't turn off. They won't stop watching it. They won't stop going. Or do you think there's a point where fans go, you know, I've had enough of this. I really have. Because that's the sense you're getting at the moment.
It is, absolutely. And I think the important thing to bear in mind here is nothing's off the table. I mean that positively and negatively. There's obviously the temperature is rising on an hourly basis by the sounds of it. But at the same time, no one has ruled anything in or out. There is only a letter of intention signed by a number of clubs. That only letter of intention only goes so far. So I would use everything with a bit of a pinch of salt, which is this has got a lot of hard negotiation to go before anything is actually resolved properly. Yeah,
Daniel, good to talk to you. Thanks very much. That's author Danny Geey of the book Done Deal and sports lawyer. And we were talking there about sort of rebel players, and I was chatting earlier on to the gaffer here about World Series cricket. And some parallels, I mean, the difference is they went off to play for franchise teams, not for the clubs they currently play for. But they were players that said they wanted to go and play in this tournament and then couldn't play for their countries. Remember, Australia came to England. They were about 13 players down.
But they had a point. Cricketers weren't getting well paid. This, you know, sometimes if there's a breakaway for a reason, and it's a good reason, well, then the fans will go with it. And they loved World Series cricket. This is completely different. You can't feel sorry for any of these owners or these players or any of the people here. They're all earning an absolute fortune. It's ridiculous. I just think the fans will go, oh, forget it. I'll try another sport. I'll try rugby league. Really. That's the danger. No, that is the danger. You know, they shouldn't just assume that the average football fan will take anything.
No.
Because they won't.
No. I mean, I don't know about you. I kind of, taking in the news yesterday that my club are going to be part of this, I was almost hankering for a Phoenix club. You know, if someone, you know, just found a strip of field on Haringey High Street and can put some crowds in, we'd have AFC Tottenham Hotspurs. I think I'll go and watch that because I've been feeling more and more disenfranchised from the club in the last few years anyway.